Listen up, all fight fans and fitness junkies. You've been listening to me talk about Jocko Fuel for a while now, and if you've been waiting, the wait is over. This August, you can score a massive 30% off on all of Jocko Fuel's top-tier supplements. That's right, 30% off. Jocko Fuel is loaded with all of the good stuff and none of the bad. We're talking no added sugar, no artificial sweeteners, and absolutely no gray area or banned substances. Just pure, clean fuel to power your performances. And guys, I really want you to try some of my favorites like Jocko Go and Jocko Hydrate. This deal is only going to be available for the month of August. So use code Chael30 or go to JockoFuel.com. Don't wait. Fuel up with Jocko Fuel and crush your goals. Guys, click on the link below to make it happen. Well, let the debate begin. I mean, who does the night belong to? It's very hard to act as though what Dan Hooker just pulled off isn't monumental. Dan Hooker has a style that's a problem for him. He has a style that is a proven problem for him, and only one. Only one. And a number of guys are like this, right? They just don't match up so well with, and then fill in the blank. Gamrot is that blank. I mean, I got to tell you, I don't know if my favorite fighter is Dan Hooker, Michael Chandler. Like, I'm narrowing them down. I'm getting very few, right? When Frankie Edgar retired, put me in a tough spot. But I will just share with you, candidly, I was very uneasy about this fight. I just knew it was the matchup issue. Now, here's what I also knew, okay? If you're going to get rid of Hooker, you got 30 seconds to do it. Now, you can beat him. There's ways to, he's a human being. You can beat him. But the best way to beat him is to get rid of him. And if you're going to get rid of him, you better do it fast. Now, I share that with you because there really wasn't any doubt. There wasn't really any doubt that Gamrot would be able to get on top. The first time I ever heard about Gamrot was from Ali. And it was when Islam was getting ready to fight him. And I was dismissing him. I was on the phone with Ali and, talking, and we're going from one thing to the next. I flow right past that, and all we kept going, and Ali came back. He said, "Hey, Chael, by the way, I'm getting the sense you don't know who Gamrot is." And he said, I was talking from a perspective, I thought if anyone would know, it's you, because I'm such a wrestling fan. I did not. I was not aware. I went and looked him up, and this was a meaningful amount of time ago, right? This was the week that Gamrot was going to fight Islam, so we're talking about a couple of years now. But I did go look him up, and I believe what I saw is he was 5th in the European Championships. 5th in the European Championships, pretty comfortably, pretty reasonably would make you a top 10 guy in the world. Pretty reasonably. Different years, different times. I'm just sharing for you, and I'm talking about amateur wrestling, freestyle specifically. The Gamrot is a very meaningful competitor, but he also fits right in that blueprint, right in that problematic type for Dan Hooker. But again, if you're going to get the jump on Dan, you better do it right now. Because if you don't handle this, yourself, and you leave it up to Dan, and you're waiting for Dan to quit, and so many guys do, right? Like eventually, if that fight is long enough or hard enough, they will break. Except him. I can't believe he has this much left, quite frankly. Right? A guy, it doesn't matter what kind of a gangster he is, he's only got so many bullets in the chamber. I watched Dan Hooker recently conduct an interview, and while he's doing the interview, post-fight interview with Joe Rogan, he's got a broken arm. That wasn't that long ago. I watched back in COVID times where he had to quarantine away from his beautiful family for 71 days. Not to mention, this is post-fight, so he's depressed. Win or lose, post-fight depression is real, and he's got to go do that alone in a room. I watched this guy changing weight classes. I watched this guy tonight in Dan Hooker laughing about something in the corner with his coaches with both eyes cut and a round down at minimum on the judges' scorecards. There's some bad dudes out there, and then there's Dan Hooker. I mean, you want to talk about BMF, and that's exactly where I'm going. But the BMF is a select category, and it's kind of like the Supreme Court says. We can't define it, but we will know it when we see it. And we know it when we see it, right, guys? It's not everybody. It's not for everybody. And it's not to say that you couldn't beat certain guys. It's a category of guy. It's the fighter's fighter, if you will. It's your favorite fighter's favorite fighter, quote, Jon Anik. And I don't know if there's a lineage there. I will share this with you. Max Holloway, who's the reigning BMF champion, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't stop right there, go to somebody else, and we'll restart this thing. I'm just sharing. But Max Holloway, and see, people forget this. Max goes out, the biggest show that Dana White has ever put on, at least in theory, it was intended to be UFC 300, and Max steals the show. Nothing was talked about more than his match. As a matter of fact, the second most talked about thing of that entire night was a guy that got beat. It was just he got beat by Max, right? It was Justin. It was that fight. And we're not done talking about it, guys. By the way, don't think for a moment that's not going to be your knockout of the year at the World MMA Awards. Don't think for a moment that that's not going to be nominated and possibly go down as your fight of the year. I don't care if it's 4-0. The point, before I get too far off my topic here, is you do have a short-term memory on that. And you are forgetting. Like, here you have Max, the champion. And you have Max, the #1 contender. But prior to that, no one asked to see that fight. Big fights are not made in the office. You got to be prepared for that. If you want a sustainable business, you better be able to make it big. But that's not how it's done. Big fights are made in today's world on the internet by you. Big fights are made, again on the internet in some fashion, by the athletes themselves. Max did not ask for Justin. Justin did not for Max. You guys did not ask for Justin against Max. When it went off, if you took the BMF out of that, you got a good fight. You've got a good, solid fight on a good, solid night of fighting. Its placement on the card, a couple from the bottom and a couple away from the top, like everything was perfect. But I got to offer you that because Max ended up in that spot because they didn't know what to do with him at 145. He could not fight Volkanovski. It did not appear that anybody right now was going to be able to deal with Volkanovski. In fact, if we want to get a contender for Volkanovski, we got to do it a way that we haven't done with any other contenders, which is keep the guy the hell away from Max, and that's exactly what they did. That's exactly how Ilya got to that spot, but they didn't know what to do with Max. Had Ilya not got the jump on Volk stays champion, you're still stuck with what do we do with Max? My guess, guys, even in light of what we know now and him being the BMF champion, he would have stayed at 155. And then we'd have a discussion of how far can he go at 55 for the undisputed title. Oh, by the way, should we even pursue that or should we just keep him at 55 and defend the BMF title? Like, right, it's one of these really interesting positions. And the reason that's so relevant to understand, Dan Hooker wasn't terribly far away from a similar spot of what do we do? Everybody likes this guy. He's dog tough. He still matters. He can sell a lot of tickets. He's got a good enough ranking. He can stop top guys. But he's a veteran of the sport now. He's no longer a spring chicken. So what would you do with him? I'm talking about if he was to lose tonight to Gamrot. And now that he did it, and now that that's back open, we have a real conversation. I'm not predicting for you that he's going to go out and get a BMF title fight. I'm just suggesting for you, let's do something with it, guys. Like, I'm not the only one sitting around that's excited here. I just watched 15,000 people on television on their feet going crazy for that. He is the fighter of the night. Nobody got a popper reception like Dan Hooker did when they read that final scorecard. I'm just sharing with you. We could bring him back. We could give him another opponent. We could say, all right, there was the bad matchup, and now let's do something that's more reasonable matchup. We can do that. Or we can go a little further. He qualifies. I just want to bring that to your attention.